Hi guys, in this video we'll be starting our course on analog electronics. So before starting our course on analog electronics, we must have a basic idea about the semiconductor physics and basic concepts that are included in our semiconductor. For ECE people, they might have already gone through these concepts in their course on electronic devices. So this will be especially helpful. This video will be helpful for electrical people because they don't know the basics of electronic devices. So see this video carefully in order to understand how the semiconductor devices operate, what are the basic principles that are working inside a semiconductor. Okay. So in this semiconductor physics, what we'll be covering is, first of all, we'll be talking about the types of materials. What are the different types of materials? Then we will be classifying materials based on electrical conductivity. Okay. Then we'll be studying a bit about band theory. Then we'll talk about semiconductors. Okay. After that, we'll talk about currents in semiconductors. Okay. This is a brief overview of what we study in ECE in the first chapter, that is your semiconductor physics or semiconductor devices. Okay. So this is just a brief introduction, because if you know these principles, then you can apply these principles to the different electronic devices that we'll see in the further chapters. So let us get started. First, let us discuss about the classification of material. Now the materials are generally classified into three categories. First one is called as crystalline materials. The second one is called as amorphous materials, and the third one is called as pseudo crystalline, or it is also called as semi-crystalline. Now, as you might have studied in your 12th standard or the 11th standard, we talk about the crystal structure. Now, what is a crystal? A crystal structure is a material which has regular arrangement of atoms or molecules. Okay. It has a regular arrangement. Regular arrangement means there is a certain pattern that keeps on repeating, and then it generates the entire material. Okay. A repetitive pattern. That is called as a crystalline material. Now in the figures that I have shown you, the third figure is that of a crystalline material, because if you see here, all the atoms are arranged in a periodic manner or in a regular manner, and it goes on repeating, so it will be called as a crystalline material. The opposite of crystalline is called as amorphous. Amorphous means no arrangement of atoms or molecules. No arrangement means that the atoms and molecules are at random. So if you see the second figure, you will understand that it is amorphous. Okay. Because if you see these dots are the atoms, and these atoms are randomly placed inside the material, so it is called as amorphous. Then what is pseudocrystalline? It is somewhere between crystalline and amorphous. How between crystalline and amorphous? Is that it has arrangement. No doubt it has arrangement, but only over short distance. Okay. Like see in this figure, this one is your pseudocrystalline. If you see, these lines represents arrangement, but this arrangement is only present in this region. Outside this, arrangement is there, but this arrangement is not same as the adjacent one. See, these two arrangements are different. These two arrangements are different. So arrangement is there definitely, but in consecutive sections or adjacent sections, the arrangements are not identical. So what you can say is that a material is divided into smaller sections, and within that section the atoms are regularly arranged, but the two sections are not regularly arranged with respect to each other. So atoms are arranged inside each section, but the two sections may or may not be arranged with respect to each other. That is called as your pseudo crystalline. In crystalline, the arrangement is over the entire material. In pseudo crystalline, the arrangement is over only the small sections within the material. Now when we talk about crystalline, see, in crystalline I told you that it is a periodic arrangement, that is repetitive arrangement. Now when you see a signal, you say that the signal is periodic if one section of the signal keeps on repeating itself. Okay, same way any arrangement is periodic if a unit repeats itself. If a unit keeps on repeating itself, then it is called as periodic arrangement, or you can say regular arrangement. Is it fine? If there is some unit which keeps on repeating. Now this unit that keeps on repeating inside a crystalline material, that is called as a unit cell. Now this term might be familiar to you because we study this in chemistry also. Unit cell is basically it is a small unit which keeps on repeating itself in order to generate the entire crystal. You might have heard about FCC lattice, BCC lattice, and if you haven't heard about this and you are preparing for ESE, then you will go through these terms in electrical materials. That is the basic portion of chemistry, that is the nature of lattice. Okay, so there are three basic materials: crystalline, amorphous and pseudo-crystalline. And on what basis are they classified? They are classified on the basis of molecular or atomic arrangement within that material. Now let us classify the materials based on conductivity. Now based on conductivity, there are three types of materials. First one are called as insulators. If you are from electrical or ECE background, then this is very important that you already know this. The three types of materials are insulator, semiconductors, and the third one, conductor. These are the three types of materials that are generally there. Now conductivity. Conductivity, how you define conductivity? See, when we talk about resistance, how do we write resistance? Resistance is rho L by A, where rho is this resistivity. Then what is conductivity? Conductivity is actually 1 by rho. Now this conductivity is actually directly proportional to N, where N is the concentration of charge carriers. Now if you have studied a network analysis, then you know that there is Ohm's law. Let me explain it to you. There is Ohm's law, J equal to sigma E. Okay, where sigma is the conductivity. So what you can say, if conductivity sigma increases, J increases and current increases. That means higher conductivity means the material will carry higher amount of current. Is it fine? Higher conductivity implies higher amount of current, and that is what I am saying. Conductivity is proportional to number of charge carriers, because if number of charge carriers or concentration of charge carriers is high, that is more charge carriers are present, then the current will also be high. So you can think like this: If the material has more number of charge carriers, it will be able to carry more amount of current, right? More number of charge carrier or more electrons will contribute to a higher amount of current. Now, that is why if you say if number of charge carriers, if the number of charge carriers increase, then conductivity increases. Okay. So in these three materials, what is the basic difference is the number of charge carriers. Concentration actually means number of charge carriers per unit volume. Okay. So the unit of this concentration N is per centimeter cube. That is number of charge carriers per centimeter cube. So insulators can have a maximum concentration of 10 to the power 6. Semiconductors have maximum concentration of 10 to the power 21. And above this, the materials will be called as conductors. So what you can say that conductors have maximum number of charge carriers, whereas the insulators have minimum number of charge carriers. Now semiconductor materials are interesting. Why? Because in that the range of these charge carriers is large. Okay. Range of concentration is large. If concentration is variable, if N can be varied, that means sigma is also variable. Okay. That is the best property about semiconductors, is that you can change their conductivity. Their conductivity is not constant. Whatever conductivity you want, you can create that conductivity, and that is the best thing about the semiconductor material. Okay. That is not at all possible in case of insulators or conductors. Now let us talk about the band diagram. Now before going to band diagram, let me give you a brief theory about this band theory. Okay, how these bands are formed. Is it fine? So what is band of energy? What we mean by this? See, when we used to study chemistry, what we used to say in Bohr model? In Bohr model, we say that electrons are present in shells around the nucleus. Let me take an example of carbon atom. Carbon atom has an atomic number of 6. So we used to write its atomic configuration as 1s2, 2s2, 2p2. Okay. I am not going into details of this chemical configuration or atomic configuration because that is a part of chemistry. So what we used to say that there is a nucleus in which 2 electrons are present in the innermost shell and 4 electrons are present in the outer shell or the second shell, like this. Okay, 4 electrons are present. Now whenever chemical bond is formed, which electrons take part in bonding? Only outermost electrons become a part of bonding or bond. Okay. That means whenever you will form a chemical bond, the outermost electrons will form a part of bond. Now see this thing. If you have nucleus, if you have electron, if you bring these such two atoms close, if we bring these two close in order to form a bond, then what happens? Within each atom there is electrostatic attraction, like this. This is the attractive force. But when these two atoms start coming close, there will be a force between the nucleus. That force will be repulsive. there will be attractive force between electron of one atom and nucleus of the other. There will be attractive force between nucleus and electron, and repulsive force between the two electrons. So this will be repulsive, attractive, attractive. That means when two atoms will come close, there will be forces acting between the two atoms. Earlier the forces were between the nucleus and electron of the same atom, but as they come close, forces appear between the two atoms. Now if we go by basic concept of electrostatics, what I can say, if we go by electrostatics, that whenever electrostatic force appears, potential energy changes. Okay. Why potential energy changes? We know change in potential energy is work done. Work done is force dot displacement. So whenever force is acting and there is displacement, then there will be change in potential energy. So what I can say is, when bond is formed, energy level of electrons will change. Is it fine? Whenever bond will be formed, the energy level of electron will change. Why is it happening? Due to forces acting between the two atoms. If energy level changes, then what happens actually is, we say that at each energy level, there are electron present. Now due to bonding, this energy level splits up into two energy levels. One energy level is called as anti-bonding molecular orbital. Other one is called as bonding molecular orbital. Now in this bonding molecular orbital, what happens? Energy is less. In anti-bonding, energy is high. So what I mean to say is, there are energy levels present within each atom, and when bond is formed, there are forces acting between the two atoms, and these forces change the energy levels into two levels. One is called as bonding, other is called as anti-bonding. Anti-bonding has higher energy as compared to bonding. That means an energy level gives rise to two energy level, one of which is high and the other is low. Now what we know by our data, or what we know by common sense, is that every electron or every body will try to remain in a state of minimum energy. So electrons always prefer to stay in bonding molecular orbital. Okay. So in anti-bonding there are less electrons, in bonding there are more electrons. Is it fine? Electrons always prefer to stay in a state of minimum energy, so it will have more. Now when many such energy levels will appear, why many energy levels will appear? Because many atoms are combining together. I told you the case of only two atoms. When many such atoms will combine, many energy level will be created. Out of those many energy level, some will be bonding, others will be anti-bonding. Now bonding molecular orbitals will be the ones having lower energy, and anti-bonding will be the ones having higher energy. So what I can say is, due to bond formation, there are two energy levels created, lower and the higher energy, and when these energy levels are very close together like this, these are high energy and some will have low energy. Okay. Now why I am showing multiple levels in high energy? Due to n atoms, when n atoms are combined. Similarly, in low energy, due to n atoms. Now, when these energy levels are very close together, it is called as a band. Okay. So, there are multiple energy levels which are very close to each other, and they will be termed as an energy band. So, what do you understand by this? If I ask you to summarize, what you have to say? When the atoms come close together, there are forces acting between the atoms. Due to these forces, the energy levels of an atom or of an electron will change. If the energy level changes, it gets split into two energy levels, antibonding and bonding. Antibonding has higher energy, bonding has lower energy. And when multiple such atoms combine, multiple energy levels are created, and if these energy levels are very close to each other, they will be called as a band. So a band is nothing but collection of energy levels which are very close in energy to each other. They are very closely located in terms of their energy. Now this high energy band will be from now on called as conduction band, and the low energy band will be called as the valence band. Okay. So I am telling two names, one is the conduction band and other is the valence band. Okay. Now when we talk about band diagram, I have told you that there are two energy bands. One of them is called as valence band and the other is called as the conduction band. So in the last slide, what I told you is that whenever bond formation takes place, which electrons participate? Only outermost electrons. Okay. Only outermost electrons, or you can say valence electrons. Okay. That is why valence electrons are said to lie in valence band. Valence band means it is a collection of energy levels of valence electrons. That is why I have shown one more energy level, that is core electron. Core electrons means inner electrons which lie inside the outermost shell. Like in penultimate shell or the inner shells, those will be called as core electrons, and they will have lower energy as compared to valence band or conduction band. This much is fine. Valence band is what? Valence band is collection of energies of the valence electrons. What are the valence electrons? The electrons that are present in the outermost shell. This much is fine. Now see. At T equal to 0 Kelvin, kT by E or thermal energy is 0. If thermal energy is 0, no electron has energy to move or conduct current. No electron will have that much energy. If no electron has energy to move or conduct current, then what happens? That electrons are lying in valence band. That is, all electrons will lie in valence band. So we will say valence band is full and conduction band is empty. This you will say. Are you getting my point? Actually, what is the significance of this conduction band? It consists of electrons taking part in conduction. Okay. Electrons taking part in conduction will lie in conduction band. Electrons attached to atom will lie in valence band. So valence band contains the electrons in the outermost shell, okay, which are still attached to the atom. Okay, if these electrons escape the force of nucleus, if these electrons get free from the atom, then they will start to conduct current and they will lie in the conduction band. So conduction band only contains the electrons which are free from atom to conduct the current. Okay, and valence band contains electrons which are still bound to the nucleus by electrostatic force. Now as temperature increases, electron gain energy. If they gain energy, they ionize from the atom. They get ionized from the atom. If they ionize from the atom, then what happens? Then they can conduct current. If they can conduct current, they will be said to lie in conduction band. Okay. So electrons are said to move from valence band to conduction band. In terms of chemistry, what you can say, by giving energy, if we are ionizing the electrons, then then they can take part in conduction, and that is the same thing when we say that electrons are moving from valence band to the conduction band. Okay. Now if we talk about the three type of material, conductor, semiconductor and insulator, and check their band diagrams, then let me first explain the terms here. EC. EC is called as minimum energy of conduction band. Okay. Similarly EV. EV is called as maximum energy of valence band. See, valence band contains electrons which are bound to the nucleus. Conduction band contains electrons which are ionized from the nucleus. So conduction band electrons have more energy as compared to valence band. Okay. So if they have more energy, then the minimum energy at which we will call an electron to lie in conduction band is called as EC. It is the minimum energy at which an electron can be a part of conduction band. Similarly, valence band electrons have lower energy. So EV is the maximum energy that a valence band electron can have. It cannot have more energy than EV. And the gap between these two energies is called as energy gap, or it is also called as band gap. Why is this gap significant? This is the gap between valence and conduction band, so it represents the energy required to send an electron from valence to the conduction band. Sending an electron from valence to conduction band means ionizing that electron from the atom so that it takes part in conduction. So Eg is the energy required in order to promote the electron from valence to the conduction band, and it has the unit electron volt. Okay, electron volt is a unit of energy, and 1 electron volt is equal to 1.6 into 10 to the power minus 19 joule. This much is fine. Now there are three materials: metal, semiconductor and insulator. Metal can also be called as conductor. In conductor, if you see, there is no gap between conduction and valence band here. CB and VB overlap. Why they are overlapping? That means valence band electrons are already a part of conduction band. Okay. If valence band electrons are already a part of conduction band means that there are some electrons which are already ionized. If electrons are already ionized means they can take part in conduction. Okay. So that means when we talk about a metal or a conductor, there are already free electrons present which can take part in conduction. What is meant by free electrons? The electrons that are free from the grip of nucleus and can take part in conduction are called as free electrons. So in a metal, valence and conduction band are overlapping with each other. What does that mean? It means that there are free electrons present inside the atom even at 0 Kelvin temperature. Okay. Now if you see, in semiconductor, there is a very small energy gap. This energy gap illustrates or tells us that a small amount of energy is required to send the electron from valence to conduction band. It means a small amount of energy is required to ionize the electron. In insulator, the energy gap is large. If the energy gap is large, this is basically greater than 5 electron volt in insulator. If it is so large, then it is very difficult for an electron to go from valence band to conduction band. Going from valence band to conduction band means ionizing. Why ionizing? To conduct current. So it means it is very difficult for an insulator to conduct current. It is easier for semiconductor, and for metal it is easiest. So the larger is the energy gap, it says it is more difficult to conduct current through that material. As you increase the energy gap, the difficulty for current conduction increases. So current is most difficult to conduct in an insulator and it is easiest to conduct in a metal. For semiconductor it is moderate. It is neither too easy and not too difficult. So these are the three type of material. What did I tell you? In a conductor, the number of charge carriers are high. In an insulator, the number of charge carriers are minimum. In a conductor, energy gap is minimum or zero. In an insulator, energy gap is larger. So these are the three type of materials that are there when we classify on the basis of conductivity or the band diagram. So now let me summarize whatever we have learned in this lecture, and rest of the topics as I told you about the semiconductor, we'll continue in the next one. So what did I tell you? I told you that there are three type of material on the basis of structure: crystalline, amorphous and pseudocrystalline. Crystalline had regular arrangement of atoms. Pseudocrystalline had regular arrangement over short distance. Amorphous had the atoms at random. Then we classified on the basis of insulator, semiconductor and conductor or metal. I told you when we talk about charge carrier concentration, these boundaries are 10 to the power 6 and 10 to the power 21, and this charge carrier concentration units are per centimeter cube. That is, insulators will have less than 10 to the power 6, semiconductors will have greater than 10 to the power 6 but less than 10 to the power 21, conductors will have concentration greater than 10 to the power 21. When we talked about band gap was 5 electron volt, greater than 5 electron volt. Here it was less than 5 electron volt. Here there was no energy gap. That is, conduction band and valence band overlap. I told you about the concept of valence band. Valence band contains outermost electrons or valence electrons, okay, whereas conduction band contains electrons free from atom or ionized electron. I told you minimum energy of conduction band is EC and it is greater than EV. That is, maximum of valence band, EC is minimum of conduction band. This much we have learnt about the classification of material, that is semiconductor, insulator and conductor. And in the next video, I'll only talk about semiconductors which we will be using to construct our devices such as diode, BJT, MOSFET. Thank you. Hi guys, in this video we'll cover the semiconductor physics portion that we were talking about in the earlier video. So first let us see what we have covered in the previous one. In the previous one I started by telling you the different type of material, that is crystalline, amorphous and pseudo-crystalline type of material. I told you in crystalline material there is long range ordering, or all the atoms are ordered in a particular manner. In pseudo-crystalline there is ordering but only over short distance. In amorphous type of material there is no ordering. Then we went on to discuss about three type of material based on conductivity, that is insulators, semiconductors and then conductors. I told you that these materials differ in their charge carrier concentration. So when we talk about charge concentration, it is represented by N. It has units per centimeter cube. Insulators have a maximum of 10 to the power 6. Semiconductors have a maximum of 10 to the power 21. For semiconductor it has a very wide range. And that is the most important feature of semiconductor, that their conductivity can be varied over large range, and that is why they are used to construct electronic devices. Then we talked about the concept of conduction band and valence band. Okay. I told you conduction band contains electrons which are free from atom and can take part in conduction. Valence band contains electrons that are bound to the nucleus and present in the outermost shell of an atom. I told you conduction band energy is high, valence band energy is low. So minimum conduction band energy is given by EC, maximum valence band energy is given by EV. And we very well know EC will be greater than EV. So the difference between EC and EV is called as band gap. So in insulators the band gap energy is more than 5 electron volt. In conductor there is no band gap. In semiconductors it is less than 5 electron volt. Okay. So that is the general concepts of the semiconductor physics that we talked about in the previous video. Now in this lecture I'll be only talking about the semiconductors and the concepts that are relevant to the semiconductor. So first let us understand about classification of semiconductor. So the first type of semiconductor material is called as pure semiconductor. Pure semiconductor means that there is no impurity. What is meant by impurity? That is atoms which are not desired. Like suppose I have silicon crystal. In that crystal any atom other than silicon is undesirable, so it will be called as impurity. Okay, like if I have germanium crystal, so any atom other than germanium will be considered as impurity. But if you have studied semiconductors anyhow earlier, you will be thinking right now that such materials are called as intrinsic. Now why I am calling it as pure? Because other than this condition for pure semiconductor, there is one more condition: no crystal defect. Now what is this crystal defect actually? See, I told you a crystal is regular arrangement of atoms. Now suppose I have a three-dimensional crystal in the form of a cube. Okay, like this. Now these are all atoms at the edges. Now if this one atom leaves its position and moves here from A to B, it is called as defect. That is, if there is any disturbance in the regular arrangement of atoms, if any atom is removed from its position or it changes its position, then it will be called as a crystal defect. Okay, so that means this is a perfect crystal, which is not practically possible. Is it fine? Because if you have crystalline material, see, in a crystalline material, if we are transporting such a material, if we are carrying, we are processing, we are doing anything with that material, if there is some force on that material, then the atom can change its position. So you can never ensure that atoms will always be at their position, and not even one atom will be changing its position. Because somehow if the crystal gets distorted, then it will never be a pure type of crystal. Okay, so perfect arrangement is impossible to achieve. Some atoms will always be dislocated from their position, and it will be called as a crystal defect. Now when we have started talking about semiconductor, let us talk about the concept of hole. What is this hole? Hole is basically a vacancy of electron. Now how this vacancy appears? Suppose I have an atom. Suppose this is an atom. I have carbon atom. There are 2 electrons in the innermost shell. How many electrons are there in the outermost shell? There are 4 electrons. Okay. Now suppose if this one electron goes away, then its position will be vacant, and this will be called as a hole. So hole is nothing but it is absence of electron or vacancy of an electron, that will be called as a hole. So why will hole be created? Holes will be created when electron become free from atom. I told you when electron is ionized from an atom, it becomes a part of conduction band. If it becomes a part of conduction band and it starts to conduct current, then it will leave behind a vacancy, and that will be called as a hole. See, when we talk about carbon chemical configuration, it is 1s2, 2s2, 2p2. Okay, that means there are 4 electrons in the valence band. Why 4 not 6? Because valence band only contains outermost electrons. These 2 electrons are called as core electron. So there will be 4 electron. Now if you promote 1 electron from valence band to conduction band, then what will happen? Here there will be vacancy, and this vacancy will be called as hole. So what you can say, when an electron goes to conduction band, it leaves a hole in the valence band, because initially all the electrons are present in the valence band, and if ever they are moving to the conduction band, a hole is generated in the valence band. So that means electron and hole are created together. Hole creation is clear to me. Hole creation means the leaving of a vacancy when electron goes from valence band to conduction band. But what is meant by electron creation? Electron creation means, electron creation implies jumping of electron to conduction band. So electron creation means actually free electron creation. So free electron means electron present in the conduction band. So electron will be present in the conduction band whenever it jumps from valence to the conduction band, and in that situation it will leave behind a hole in the valence band, and that is why it is called as electron hole pair, because they go in pair, they are never alone. So whenever electron goes into conduction band, a hole is generated in the valence band. So can you say that number of electron will be equal to number of hole? This number of electron means electrons in conduction band. Remember this thing. Whenever I'll talk about number of electron, I'll talk about number of electron in the conduction band or free electron. So that is why electron and hole concentration will always be equal. Okay, that is a pure semiconductor. So now what you have to remember in pure semiconductor, that there is no impurity as well as there is no crystal defect, and if we promote an electron from valence to conduction band, a hole is generated in the valence band, and electron and hole are generated in a pair, so it is called as electron hole pair. Okay. Now the next category after pure semiconductor, the second one is called as intrinsic semiconductor. So intrinsic means no impurity, but it can have crystal defect. Okay, it can have crystal defect, and that is called as the intrinsic semiconductor. Now in the previous slide I have told you, whenever any electron will jump from valence to conduction band, there will be a hole or vacancy created in the valence band. That is why I told you number of holes is equal to number of electrons, or you can say hole concentration will be equal to electron concentration. Is it fine? Now the other phenomena that is happening is that some electrons are also coming back to the valence band. Whenever electron comes back from valence band to conduction band, see, energy of valence band is less than energy of conduction band. So to send it to higher energy, what you will need to give? You will need to give energy. If you give energy, electron will go from lower energy to higher energy. But if it comes from higher energy to lower energy, it will give back the energy. So when electron goes from valence to conduction band, we have to provide the energy, and when it comes back from conduction to valence band, it gives out the energy. So this is the first process is called as electron hole pair generation, because whenever electron goes from valence to conduction, a hole is generated in valence band and electron is created in the conduction band. But when it comes back to the valence band, the vacancy is removed. If it comes back to its original position, the vacancy will be removed. So that is called as electron hole pair recombination. Recombination means, what I mean to say here is that here there was electron, here there was a hole or vacancy. Okay, if this electron comes back here, so electron from conduction band will disappear and hole from valence band will disappear, and that will be called as electron hole pair recombination. Okay, are you getting my point? When electron comes back from conduction to valence band, it will terminate a hole in the valence band and electron from the conduction band. So there are two phenomena going on simultaneously, that is generation and recombination. If suppose I say number of electron generated is equal to number of electron recombining, that is, if 10 electrons are generated and 10 electrons are recombining, what you can say? Number of electron in conduction band will remain constant. It will neither increase nor decrease. Suppose there are 5 electrons in the conduction band. Okay, there are 5 electrons in the conduction band. Now 2 electrons go from valence to conduction. 2 electrons go from valence to conduction. So how many electrons are there in the conduction? There will be 5 plus 2, 7 electron. Now 2 will come back from conduction to valence. If 2 are coming back from conduction to valence, again only 5 will be left. So if number of electrons going from valence to conduction and going from conduction to valence are equal, electron concentration will remain constant, and this condition is called as thermal equilibrium. Okay. If someone asks you what is thermal equilibrium, it is a state in which the generation and recombination are equal to each other, and hence the electron and hole concentration remains constant, is called as your thermal equilibrium. Is it fine? So at thermal equilibrium in intrinsic semiconductor, hole concentration will be equal to electron concentration. So what we have learnt about intrinsic semiconductor, in such semiconductors there is no impurity present, but in such kind of semiconductors there can be crystal defect or electrons or atoms missing from their original position. Now how do I show an intrinsic semiconductor? Let me remove this. Okay. How will I show an intrinsic semiconductor? I will take a silicon atom. Silicon belongs to the same group as the carbon atom, so it will have 4 outermost electrons like this. Okay, 4 outermost electron. Then there will be silicon atoms around this also, like this. In a crystal there will be other atoms also. So I am talking about no impurity, so all the atoms will be silicon only. Or you can draw some more like this. Now each atom will have 4 electrons in the outermost shell, like this. There are 4 electrons with each atom. So these 2 electrons will form a double bond. These 2 will form, these 2 will form, these 2 will form. 2 lines means a double bond. like this. Okay, now see this atom. It is sharing. It is a covalent bond actually. Covalent bond is formed by sharing of electrons. If it is forming covalent bond with 4 other silicon atoms, if you see, it had 4 electrons. Now it gets 4 more electrons from the other 4 silicon atoms. So how many electrons does it have now? 8 electron. It has completed its octet. We know that every atom tries to have 8 electrons in the outermost shell, and that is why it is forming double bonds with the 4 other silicon atoms and completing its octet in the outermost shell. And that is the structure of intrinsic semiconductor in case of silicon. Okay. Now let us talk about extrinsic semiconductor. In extrinsic, the first category is p-type. Before going to p-type, let us talk about extrinsic. In extrinsic semiconductor, impurities are added. Impurities are added either to increase number of holes or number of electron. Holes means vacancy. Okay. So extrinsic semiconductor will have crystal defect as well as your impurity. Pure semiconductor neither has crystal defect nor impurity. Intrinsic has crystal defects but not impurity. Is it fine? But extrinsic has both the things, impurity as well as the crystal defect. Now, if the number of electrons are greater than number of holes, this is your electron concentration, this is your hole concentration. This not means thermal equilibrium. Thermal equilibrium means generation equal to recombination. Then it is called as N-type semiconductor. Similarly, if holes are greater than electrons, then it is called as p-type semiconductor. So I am telling you that we are adding impurity in order to increase the number of holes or number of electrons, and that is giving rise to your extrinsic or the intrinsic, p-type or the n-type semiconductor. Now what is this impurity actually? If we have group 4 semiconductor, group 4 semiconductor means silicon or germanium, then the impurity will be from either from group 3 or group 5. Group 3 means impurities such as boron. Group 5 means impurities such as phosphorus. In group 3, there are 3 electrons in the outermost shell. In group 5, there are 5 electrons in the outermost shell. But in group 4, there are only 4 electrons. Now you can understand, if you are adding group 3 impurity, then it only has 3 electrons. If it only has 3 electrons, means there is 1 electron less than the silicon or germanium. Silicon and germanium each has 4 electrons, but boron has 3. So it has 1 electron less, or it has a vacancy of 1 electron. That means it has a hole. But here there is 1 electron extra, so it has electron. So you have to compare it with the original crystal. If number of electrons are less, you will say that that atom has a hole, and if number of electrons are more, then you will say that it has electrons. So suppose if I have a silicon crystal, for p-type, what I will do? For p-type, we need to increase number of holes. To increase number of holes, we will add boron because it has a hole. To increase number of electrons, we will add phosphorus. So in this, what I will add? I will add boron. If I add boron, here there is silicon, 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 silicon. Initially it is like this. Now if you bombard it with boron, suppose this boron atom is coming here. What it will do, it will strike this silicon atom, silicon will go somewhere else and boron will occupy this position. Okay. So what happens when you bombard with the impurity? When you bombard with the impurity, it occupies the position of the original atom and the original atom moves to other location. So when we want to show it using crystal structure, as I showed you for intrinsic type of semiconductor, what I'll do, I will again form a crystal. This much is clear na? What is a extrinsic type of semiconductor which has certain impurity? So what I'll do is, I will take boron atom. Now it is surrounded on all sides by silicon atom. Okay. It is surrounded on all sides by silicon atom. Silicon atom we know has 4 electrons. Okay. But this boron atom has how many electrons? This boron atom has only 3 electrons. So these 3 electrons will form a double covalent bond with the silicon atoms. But here if you form a bond, there is 1 electron missing. This missing electron will be called as a hole. Okay, this is a hole. So that means by introduction of boron atom, you are introducing a hole. So each boron atom produces 1 hole. Now if you say that the concentration of boron atom is equal to Na per centimeter cube. Na means acceptor impurity concentration. Why acceptor? Because it has vacancy. If it has vacancy, it can absorb or accept 1 electron. So that is why it is called as acceptor impurity. Each boron atom is providing 1 hole. That is why you can say hole concentration will also be equal to Na. Okay. So each boron atom will contribute 1 hole. Okay. In intrinsic semiconductor, what happens? I told you number of electron equal to number of holes. It is equal to Ni. Ni means intrinsic concentration. Okay. So Ni is actually equal to 1.5 into 10 to the power 10 for silicon. So when you are adding boron atoms, each boron atom is giving 1 hole. So how many holes are coming? Na. So now what you will say, that hole concentration is Ni. Ni was an intrinsic, but due to boron we have Na number of holes extra. Okay. Ni were originally present when there was no boron, but now boron is contributing to more number of holes, which will be Ni plus Na. This is approximately equal to Na. Because this Na is of the order of 10 to the power 22. Now here Ni is 10 to the power 10. So 10 to the power 10 plus 10 to the power 22 will be approximately 10 to the power 22. Is it fine? So in a p-type semiconductor, what do? We introduce group 3 impurity which has only 3 electrons, or it has 1 electron less than group 4. and if it has less number of electrons, then it will be called as acceptor impurity, because it will accept or absorb one electron and it will increase the number of holes. Is it fine? Now let us talk about n-type semiconductor. In n-type semiconductor, we have group 5 impurity. Group 5 impurity means in the outermost shell, it should have 5 electron or 1 electron more than silicon or group 4 element. So how you will show it in the crystal? Suppose I am adding phosphorus. It is surrounded on all sides by silicon. Okay, on all the sides there will be silicon atom. Now we know each silicon atom has 4 outermost electrons like this. What about phosphorus? How many outermost electrons? 5. Now these 4 electrons will form double bond. Now octet is complete. This 1 electron is extra. So it will donate this electron. It will donate this electron or make it free electron. If it becomes free electron, it will start to take part in conduction. So you can say each phosphorus atom contributes 1 electron. If the concentration of phosphorus is equal to Nd, Nd means donor impurity concentration. Why donor? Because it is donating 1 electron. Then you can say that electron concentration due to phosphorus will also be equal to Nd. Okay. If each phosphorus is contributing 1 electron and Nd number of phosphorus atoms are there, then there will be Nd number of electrons contributed by phosphorus. As I told you, in intrinsic semiconductor, holes and electron concentration were equal to Ni. Now electron concentration will become Ni plus Nd, because Ni is due to silicon and Nd is due to phosphorus. So in this case, in n-type, electron concentration will increase and become more than hole, and in p-type, hole concentration will be more than electron concentration. Is it fine? Now whichever charge carriers are more, like in n-type, it has more electrons. So electrons are called as majority carriers. In p-type, holes are more. So holes are called as majority carrier. And whichever is less is called as minority carrier. The charge carriers more in number will be called as majority carriers, and the charges which are charge carriers which are less in number will be called as minority carriers. Now there is a law which is called as law of mass action. What does this law states? It states at thermal equilibrium, product of hole and electron concentration is constant. What does it mean? N0 and P0 product is equal to Ni square. Okay. Now just now I told you, in a p-type semiconductor, P0 was equal to Ni plus Na. which I told approximately equal to Na. So how many electrons will be there? Ni square by P naught or Ni square by Na. Similarly, in N-type semiconductor, N naught was Ni plus Nd. Donor concentration will always be higher than Ni, so it is equal to Nd. So P naught will be Ni square by N naught, or you can say Ni square by Nd. Okay, this is of the order of 10 to the power 22. Okay, generally what we do is we keep it between. Okay, this is a general. That I took an exceptional case 10 to the power 22, but generally 10 to the power 16 to 18 it remains. So Ni square is 10 to the power 20 because I told you Ni for silicon is 1.5 into 10 to the power 10. So 10 to the power 20 divided by 10 to the power 16, 10 to the power 4. That means here P naught is much greater than N naught. Similarly here Ni square is of the order of 10 to the power 20. Ni is 10 to the power 10. Square will be 10 to the power 20 by 10 to the power 16. It will be 10 to the power 4. So in N-type semiconductor, electrons are very much higher than the holes, and in P-type semiconductor, holes are very much higher than the electrons. But remember, at thermal equilibrium, what is meant by thermal equilibrium? When generation and recombination rates are equal, it is called as thermal equilibrium. In that case, the product of electron and hole concentration will remain same. Now we will talk about the last topic in this semiconductor physics, that is currents in a semiconductor. Now when we talk about the currents, there are two types of currents. One is called as diffusion current and the second is called as drift current. Now diffusion is a process that we study before our BTech courses. It means movement of particles from higher concentration to lower concentration. Here these particles are electrons and holes. Okay. But I told you that hole is nothing but vacancy of electron. So how does this vacancy move? Okay. Hole is nothing but vacancy of electrons. So how does the vacancy move? Let me show you this. Suppose these are the two atoms. It has an electron and it has a hole. Now if this electron goes here, that is it occupies this vacancy. Hole is nothing but vacancy. Then vacancy will be created here. So if electron goes from atom number 1 to atom number 2, you can say that hole has come from atom 2 to atom 1. So actually holes never move. But when electron moves into a hole, we can see that hole moves in the opposite direction. That is, when electron leaves an atom and goes to the other atom, it leaves behind a hole. So if you see, you will say that hole has moved in the opposite direction. So in diffusion current, what we say is that when charge carriers move from higher concentration to lower concentration, which charge carriers? Electron and holes. Then it is said to be diffusion current. In drift current, what we say is movement of charge carriers due to electric field. Okay, when charge carriers move due to electric field, then it is called as drift current. Remember, hole is electron vacancy. If it is electron vacancy, it will be positive charge. Okay, and electron will be negative charge. Is it fine? That is why there is always zero charge in case of a semiconductor, because positive charge will always cancel the negative charge. Is it fine? Positive charge always cancels the negative charge. There is net zero charge in a semiconductor. So if electrons and holes are moving due to the higher to lower concentration, it is called as diffusion current. If they are moving due to electric field, it is called as drift current. So let us first talk about the diffusion current. Okay, I will first talk to you about diffusion current. When we talk about diffusion current, so charge carriers always moves from high concentration to low concentration. It means concentration is non-uniform. Now charge carriers were injected by means of doping. Doping is a process of adding impurity. When I was making extrinsic semiconductor, I was adding impurities, either group 3 or group 5. The process of adding those impurities is called as doping. Now, when there is non-uniform doping, then concentration of charge carriers is also non-uniform. Now the flux or flow is proportional to concentration gradient, that is rate of change of concentration with distance, that is called as concentration gradient. Is it fine? So remember, the flux due to flow of charge carriers is proportional to the concentration gradient. So first let us talk about the current density. Current density is proportional to E into is equal to E into flux. Flux means number of charge carriers per unit time. Okay, so E into flux, that is proportional to E into dC by dx. Current density means current per unit area. It is proportional to the charge of each electron multiplied by the concentration gradient. So we say that current density is equal to E d dC by dx. D is your proportionality constant. It is also called as diffusion constant. Okay, remember this formula. The current density due to diffusion is equal to E into D into dC by dx. Okay, flux is proportional to dC by dx. Current density is equal to E into flux. Now we will talk about the current density of diffusion due to both holes and electrons. One by one we will proceed. Okay, so first I will talk about electrons. Suppose here there are 4 electrons, here there are more number of electrons. Okay, so electrons are increasing. So electrons will go from, suppose this is x equal to 0, this is x equal to L. So concentration increases as x increases. Concentration is increasing with respect to x. So you can say dC by dx is greater than 0. Now electrons will go from high concentration to low concentration. But we know current always flows in opposite direction to the electrons. So this will be Jn. Jn means current density due to electron. Okay. So now this Jn due to diffusion, it will be equal to E dn dc by dx. It will come out to be positive. Why positive? Because current flows in x direction. If it were flowing in minus x direction, then I will say minus sign. Okay. Now same if we derive for holes. Why I have written dn? It is diffusion coefficient of electron. Diffusion coefficient for electron. Now if the same thing I talk about holes. Suppose there are 4 holes here and there are more number of holes. Now here also concentration is increasing with x. That is dc by dx is again greater than 0. So holes will move from higher concentration to lower. Holes are positively charged. Current flows in the direction of positive charge. So this will be the direction of Jp. Now this Jp diff is flowing in minus x direction. So we will write a minus sign, minus E dp dc by dx. Okay. These are the diffusion current due to electrons and holes. In holes we have minus sign, but in electrons we have plus sign. Now next we will talk about the second component of current, that is drift current. In drift current it is current due to electric field. The current density in the drift case equal to C E Vd. Vd is your drift velocity. Drift velocity is written as mu into E, where mu is mobility and E is the electric field. This mobility has the unit centimeter square per volt second. Okay. So you can say that the current density due to drift is C E mu E. So it is directly proportional to electric field, and hence this is the current flowing due to electric field. Now when we talk about electrons, let us talk about electrons. Suppose this is electric field. We very well know that electrons flow in opposite direction to the field. Electrons experience a force opposite to the electric field, and current flows opposite to the direction of electrons. So this is Jn. So what I will say, J and drift, it is in same direction of electric field. So it is N. N is electron concentration. Okay. Here C is concentration. Since we are talking about electrons, we will take electron concentration. N E. Mu N E. Mu N is electron mobility. Similarly, when we talk about holes, holes are positive charge. So they will have force in the same direction of electric field. Holes will move in the same direction. And current also flows in the same direction of positive charge. It will be Jp. So what you will say? Jp drift is equal to P E mu P E. P is hole concentration and mu P is hole mobility. Okay. Now if you see, both the currents are flowing in the direction of the electric field. Okay. If they are both flowing in the direction of electric field, that means both currents are parallel. If both currents are parallel, they can be directly added. So what I can say? That J drift is equal to Jp plus Jn N E mu N E plus P E mu P E. So what I can say? E N mu N plus P mu P into E. Now we also know that there is Ohm's law which says that J equal to sigma E. So we can say conductivity is E multiplied by N mu N plus P mu P. That is the conductivity of semiconductor, and as you can see, it depends on charge carrier concentration, and we know we can change the charge carrier concentration by doping, and if we can change the charge carrier concentration, we can change the conductivity, and that is why semiconductors are so popular. That is, they are used to construct electronic devices because we can change the conductivity. Is it fine? And always remember that mu p is much less than mu n. Electrons always have higher mobility. That is why it is always preferable to have n-type semiconductor than p-type. Why n-type semiconductor? It will have more number of electrons, and that too have higher mobility. So conductivity will be more. So you can say conductivity of n-type semiconductor is more than conductivity of p-type. If conductivity is more, the current and current density will also be more. Last, let us talk about temperature effect. So you can say as temperature increases, it will provide ionization energy to electron. If electron ionizes, it basically goes from valence band to conduction band. If it goes from valence band to conduction band, there is a hole created in valence band. If hole is created in valence band, what you can say? That EHP is generated, electron hole pair is generated due to temperature rise. If electron hole pair is generated, electron and hole concentration will increase and conductivity will also increase. So that is the effect of temperature. That is, by changing the temperature, we can change the charge carrier concentration and conductivity of the device. So if you want to increase the number of charge carrier, you have to provide ionization energy, and that can be done by means of temperature. Okay. So let me summarize what are the effects what we have studied today. First of all, we talked about pure semiconductor. I told you no doping or impurity and no defect. Then we talked about intrinsic semiconductor. It only had no doping, but it had defects. We talked about extrinsic semiconductors. They were having doping. If you were doping using group 3, it was called as p-type. In p-type, number of holes are more than number of electrons. Holes are approximately equal to Na. So electrons are equal to Ni square by Na. If we are having group 5 impurity, then it is n-type. In n-type, n0 is greater than p0. n0 is approximately equal to donor density, and p0 will be Ni square by Nd. We studied about law of mass action, that is n0 into p0 is equal to Ni square. I told you about the term which is called as thermal equilibrium. Okay. Then we talked about current density. In that I told you Jp diffusion is minus E dP dP by dx. Jn diffusion is E dn dn by dx. N and P are electron and hole concentration. J drift is E n mu n plus P mu p into E. Conductivity is E into n mu n plus P mu p. And I told you at the last that as temperature increases, N naught and P naught increase. That is, electron and hole concentration increase as temperature increase. Also remember, even in intrinsic semiconductor, this Ni also increases with temperature. Okay. So Ni is not constant, it is a function of temperature. It is proportional to temperature to the power 3 by 2. Okay. So intrinsic concentration, don't think that it remains constant, it will change with temperature. Electron and hole both concentrations increase as the temperature is increased. So this much knowledge about semiconductors is sufficient. You don't have to memorize these things, but whenever I'll use these concepts to teach you how a device works, then you should be able to understand what I am talking about and what I am saying. But it will not be directly asked in the numericals. From formula point of view, only this formula is something that you can remember. Okay, only the formula about conductivity. Okay, from the next video onwards, we will talk about diodes directly.